Good evening. Tensions between the United States and Iran have reached a critical point as Iranian leaders issue strong warnings that any military strike by the US will be met with immediate and severe retaliation. The statements coming out of Tehran have intensified global concerns that a long-running standoff could turn into a direct military confrontation, with consequences far beyond the Middle East. In recent days, senior Iranian officials, including military commanders and government spokespeople, have made it clear that Iran will not tolerate any form of attack. According to Tehran, even a limited or surgical strike would be considered an act of war. Iranian leaders say their response would not be symbolic or delayed, but decisive and aimed at protecting national sovereignty. Iran's armed forces have reportedly been placed on high alert. Military officials have emphasized that the country is fully prepared to defend its territory, airspace, and regional interests. Public messaging from Iran has focused heavily on deterrence, with officials repeatedly stating that the cost of attacking Iran would be far greater than any potential gain. At the same time, the United States has increased its military presence in the region. American naval and air assets have been repositioned as part of what Washington describes as defensive and precautionary measures. U.S. officials argue that these deployments are meant to prevent escalation, reassure allies, and protect American personnel stationed across the Middle East. From Iran's perspective, these movements are seen as provocative. Iranian officials claim that U.S. military buildup only increases the risk of miscalculation. They warn that American bases, naval vessels, and strategic assets in the region would be considered legitimate targets if hostilities begin. The war of words has been accompanied by powerful symbolism. In Tehran, images and public displays have been used to send a clear message of defiance, reinforcing the idea that Iran is not intimidated by U.S. military power. Analysts say this messaging is aimed not only at SL, but also at Iran's domestic audience and regional rivals. Despite the aggressive tone, Iran maintains that it does not seek war. Officials insist that their warnings are defensive in nature, designed to prevent an attack rather than invite one. Tehran has repeatedly stated that it is open to diplomacy, but only if talks take place without threats, pressure, or military intimidation. On the American side, officials continue to stress that diplomacy remains the preferred option. At the same time, Washington has made it clear that it is prepared to use force if it believes its interests or allies are under threat. This dual-approach diplomacy backed by military readiness has defined U.S. policy toward Iran for years, but critics argue it also fuels mistrust. The situation has placed the wider region on edge. Countries across the Middle East are watching closely, aware that any conflict between the U.S. and Iran could quickly spread. Key shipping routes, energy infrastructure, and civilian populations could all be affected if tensions spiral out of control. Global markets are also responding to the uncertainty. Oil prices have shown sensitivity to developments, particularly due to fears surrounding the Strait of Hormuz, a critical passage for global energy supplies. Any disruption in this area could have immediate economic consequences worldwide. International leaders and organizations have called for restraint. European and Asian powers have urged both sides to step back from confrontation and prioritize dialogue. Diplomatic channels, both public and behind the scenes, are reportedly active as efforts continue to prevent escalation. Experts warn that the current standoff is one of the most dangerous in years. They point out that while neither side may want a full-scale war, the combination of military buildup, aggressive rhetoric, and deep mistrust increases the risk of unintended conflict. As of now, the situation remains tense but unresolved. Iran's message is clear. Any U.S. strike will be met with retaliation. The U.S., meanwhile, continues to balance pressure with diplomacy. The coming days and weeks will be critical in determining whether this confrontation cools down or moves closer to open conflict. For now, the world watches closely, hoping that warnings do not turn into action, and that diplomacy succeeds where force would fail.